Comic Book Savant, episode 328.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets mine free. And also, I know that I don't...
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, we're going to be going in talking about the news that came out last week in all the movie news and the movie publications about DC and Warner Brothers Films announcing that they're moving forward and doing a Nightwing movie. But before we get into that, we're going to, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network. If you like this show and you want to find other like-minded podcasts and additional podcasts to listen to, definitely stop by the Comics Podcast Network at comicspodcast.com. There are literally hundreds of different podcasts there that you can check out, from a single person podcast like myself to group roundtable podcasts. You can find them on different shows on particular characters, publishers, team books, individual characters. It's just a good melting pot and a good landing spot where you can get a whole bunch of information about a ton of different podcasts all in one spot. Again, the website is comicpodcast.com. Again, I've been affiliated with the Comics Podcast Network as long as I've been doing this show, and since it came into inception, it's just, like I said, it's a good place to go. And if you're an aspiring comics podcaster and you listen to this show and you want to get your show listed there, you can go there as well and contact the admin, and you can get your show added there as well. So that's another added thing too, because I know sometimes we have a lot of different inspiring podcasters that listen to other podcasters that might not be aware of the Comics Podcast Network. So also you can always go there to the site, email the admin. It might take a little bit to get, so you can get your show added on. It can help grow your audience as well if you're just starting out. They have a Twitter feed and everything like that, so it can get aggregated, so you can potentially gain listeners through, help pushing it through the Comics Podcast Network. And that was kind of the premise behind creating it when it initially came into existence. So definitely go check that out if you have a moment. And last but not least, as always, let's give a shout out to our sponsor for this episode and every episode, which is InStockTrades.com. Just one of the best places you can go on the internet to find any type of collected or bound editions, from your traditional trade paperbacks to your omnibus, excuse me, to your absolute editions, to your Marvel Masterworks. Any type of collected edition, they have prices and discounts ranging from as small as 35% off to 42% off. And then they have their deals of the week that can range up to 50% off. And as you guys are aware, if you're a U.S. customer, you place an order of $50 or more, you get free shipping. That's only for U.S.-based customers. If you're an international customer, don't be discouraged. You still get all the great savings, and they have some of the cheapest, most affordable international shipping rates around as well, so you can still partake on the savings, so you don't have to worry about that too. You just won't get that extra bonus of getting free shipping within the U.S., but you still get all the great savings. So definitely stop by InStockTrades.com. Let them know you heard about them here first on the Comic Book Savant podcast. I greatly appreciate it. It helps the show. Now getting into the crux of the conversation for this week, which is all about the announcement of a Nightwing movie being in production. Now, I just want to give a little context to why I'm even doing this episode. Nightwing is one of my favorite characters of all time in the history of comics. I always loved the character of Dick Grayson and Robin. Being a kid, I was born in 1975, so being a kid, really a child of the 80s, the cartoon, The Super Friends, came on, and it was Batman and Robin cartoons that came on while I was growing up. So I just always identified with Robin because he was around my age and he got to hang around the cool guy Batman. So I always just honed in and identified with his character. Excuse me. As I read comics later, I didn't read a ton of DC comics as I got a little bit older and got more and more into comics. And I probably hit my stride in the comics when I was in around the mid 80s or so. And at the time, Robin had wasn't in Batman anymore. He was in like the new Teen Titans. And I read a lot of him and his evolution transitioning into Nightwing. I stopped reading DC comics for a while till I was around college age in the early 90s. Went into a comic shop and I saw this Nightwing comic and I was like, I kind of remember who Nightwing is. And the comic shop owner was really kind and like explained who Nightwing was and that this was grown up, Dick Grayson. And I was like, okay, I kind of remember the character, but he looked totally different because his first incarnation, he had the big disco butterfly collar, kind of jumpsuit outfit from when he transitioned to New Teen Titans. So I didn't know this newer look to Dick Grayson and Nightwing. He was like, I think it was issue number 6 or number 7 of the Nightwing comic that was at the time being done by Chuck Dixon and Scott McDaniel. And he laid it out. He was like, if you buy the comic and you don't like it, you can bring it back. I'll give you your money back. Just try it. I think you'll like it. If you grew up being a fan of Robin, check it out. So it was like, okay, cool. I read it, loved it. I then went on a pilgrimage, if you will, of buying up and finding every appearance of Nightwing that I possibly could, from his first appearance to Teen Titans to I collected the whole run of that original Nightwing series, the miniseries, anything that he appeared in. I went on a personal hunt to find and buy all these comics, and I just love the character. I love the direction they went with it. I even stuck with the Nightwing series after that creative team of Chuck Dixon and Scott McDaniels left and all the different writers. And, the 1 year later, it veered and they start doing different stuff with the character. And around the time of the New 52, I started collecting it and reading it, but they had gotten so far away from what the character was. It kind of turned me off to the character, and I haven't read a lot of Nightwing. Now, since Rebirth, I've been slowly trying to get back into the character. They're trying to go back to the history that they kind of mucked up with the character, and I'm slowly, with some trepidation, getting slowly back into the character. So, with the announcement of this movie, it really just, really touched my heart as a true diehard fan of the Nightwing character. I associate, my reinvigoration or me reading DC comic books as an adult to that Nightwing comic. After I bought that Nightwing comic, I started buying, DC comics in full, and it was dipping my toe back into that pool. And from there, for the next 10, 15 years, I've, to this day, basically, I've been pretty diehard DC. Like I said, I got burnt out and, I don't read as much DC, but I still will pick up books and inquire, and I still read stuff in the Batman universe. But really, Nightwing was my gateway drug into the DC universe as an adult. From there, at that time I read Nightwing, then I got into from Teen Titans, Wally West Flash, and I read that for, quite a few years. Then at that time, Kyle Rayner was the Green Lantern. I read that for years faithfully. So it really got me back into, then around that time, the Grant Morrison JLA came out, which then sparked the cartoon, which really got me, which I had kind of grew up to that point. Being in North Carolina, and it's a lot of rural areas here, and I lived in kind of a rural area, and it was no comic shop. You only had a little gas station that had a spinner rack, and it mainly was Marvel. So, as an adult, being, having a car, being able to kind of drive different places to actual comic shops, at this time. And I was in, a freshman, sophomore, or whatever in college, and it was in a, bigger town. It was a little comic shop not too far off away from campus that I could go to and pick up comics. And so I could have more selection than that little spinner rack I did when I was younger as a kid. It really propelled me headfirst into the whole DC. I own Nightwing a lot. I probably wouldn't be a podcaster at this point. I initially, way back in, I'm really dating myself, in the early 90s, I graduated high school in 94. The internet really started hitting big around 95, 96. Let's see, around 96, 97, I was going to school, and I was at a school that was experimenting with online classes, and I started taking web design, and I had to find a topic to do on web design. I was already reading, DC, and I was so infatuated with Nightwing and the Chuck Dixon run on it. The first site I ever did was a fan site on Nightwing. I think the website was called The Night As I See It, and I did a whole fan page dedicated to that whole series, the characters, the whole nine. So that was the first website I ever designed, was a fan website for Nightwing. It garnered quite a bit of popularity. I started writing reviews online for a couple of DC Comics review sites back then in the early stages of the internet. And I did regular reviews on Nightwing and the Robin solo series that was going on, and some of the Batman books for this DC-centric fan site. And they approached me because I did the fan site about writing reviews for some of the Batman books. Chuck Dixon at the time was writing all the Bat Family books, and I was reading them all, so I reviewed quite a few of them, and it started my first introduction to the, internet as a, I guess you want to call like a comic book pundit or reviewer of sorts. I did that for, quite a few years, as well as maintaining the Nightwing fan site, which was rather popular, grew into a rather popular site. Which eventually, I got more and more comfortable in reviewing. I was doing written reviews there. Of course, this was, 10 years before, podcasting really became a thing. So for many years, maybe on that site, maybe 2 years or 3 years, I did written reviews for quite a bit for Nightwing, the Nightwing books and so forth. So that was really how I got started on the internet when it came to comic books. Again, linked back to Nightwing, and podcasting, that came about 10 years later. And some of the main comics I talked about very early on was the comic books I was reading and I was very passionate about, which was Nightwing, which a lot of the early episodes I reviewed, I did audio reviews of, issues of that. So a lot of what I actually am as a comic, podcaster and reviewer and just all around lover of comics when it relates to the internet and what you see now, I owe to the Nightwing franchise, the character of Dick Grayson. I owe him a lot, so I owe that character a lot, and just my love for the character has pulled me in so many different directions that led me to this point. So I have a real emotional attachment. So it meant a lot because I was like, I always hoped to see maybe Nightwing pop up in a Batman movie. We didn't get it, so when this was announced, it kind of really caught me off guard because I didn't even think it was something that was being considered. I know it was talk about doing a Titans television show, which Dick Grayson was going to be the leader of as Nightwing, that floated around like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, that never really, it was supposed to have been a pilot that was shot. It never really happened. I think it was, I can't even remember what station it was supposed to be on, but it was rumblings going on pretty strong, like about a year and a half ago, maybe, about it. So this totally caught me off guard. No, I haven't seen the Lego Batman movie as of yet. at some point I probably will see it and review it on the channel because it is kind of a comic book related movie. I wasn't a huge fan of the Lego movie, so them doing another movie in that style just didn't necessarily appeal to me. I've heard tons of good word of mouth. I might not, watch it and review it till it comes out on home video. I don't know if I'll go to the movie theater and see it or not. I might. I'm still kind of up in the air about it. Maybe at some point. But the director of that movie is what the news story was dropping, that he's in negotiations with Warner Brothers and DC Film to direct this Nightwing movie. So, and people said this is one of the best on-film adaptations of Batman they've seen in quite some time. His work in the Lego Batman movie. Now, his background is, more on the animation side, and he hasn't done so much with live action. And then it's the stuff with live action he's done like some TV and commercials and things like that, and it's more comedy based. Hence, like the Lego Batman movie, from what I heard, is very funny and very comedic. That gives me pause about it. Now, when it comes to the writer that is associated with it is this movie is going to be based on a script by him, is Bill Dubuque. He's most notably known for, he wrote The Accountant, that was directed by Gavin O'Connor, with Ben Affleck. That was a sleeper, kind of like a sleeper hit last year. I recently saw the movie right at the end of the year, I think. Maybe it was like New Year's Eve I watched it or something like that. And I finally got a chance to watch it. And I really liked the movie. It kind of came and went into movie theater. It had a super small budget, but it was a really strong movie, and I really enjoyed it. And it was a very action movie. The only other credits really Bill Dubuque has under his name is A Family Man, which is a movie that came out sometime last year, or it might not be released yet, but it was filmed last year with I can't even remember who's in the movie. And then he did The Judge, the movie that kind of tanked with Robert Downey Jr. And I'm seeing the actor's name. Or his dad is a judge. It kind of tanked when it came out. It was in between, I think, Iron Man 2 and 3, or maybe right after Iron Man 3 came out. He did this movie, and it kind of tanked. So I don't know, was it the writing, the directing, or what it was with that, and the movie just didn't resonate with people. So he's he's already written a script, and they both are in negotiations for this project to move forward, and they're looking, this is going to be pushed along the production track, and, they're really trying to get this movie made. It has been, no final negotiations been announced that they've been locked in as of the time I'm recording this episode. It could change at any moment, but they are in talks and negotiations. So it could be, the news that they have been officially hired for this movie could be coming, like I said, anytime. Now, what I'm going to do in talking about this, I thought I would have some fun since I'm such a huge fan of the character in the world. I'm going to just break down what I would like to see from it as being such a diehard fan of the character. And I'm going to talk about, the director, the writer, who I would cast in the movie, what source material I would think the movie needs to have, what the source material should be based on, and adapting this into film. Talk about how this might tie into the bigger picture, to the extended universe, what budget. I did a whole bunch of research on this. I really geeked out on it because this is such a dream project that I never thought that would happen. So as soon as this news was announced, I was like, I got to talk about this on the show. No actors have been attached to it. It's been a lot of different rumblings on the casting, especially of the Dick Grayson character. So we're going to jump into that. Now, when it comes to the director, my only concern, like I said, with Chris McKay, is that he really hasn't done a lot of live action stuff. Now, I won't knock him on it because, you have, Lord and Miller and they did the Lego movie, and then they went on and they did 21 Jump Street, and they've done different things. Now they're doing a Han Solo movie. We have, why is his name escaping me at this point? The Incredibles director, the animation director. I'm going to look it up on IMDb right now because I totally blanked out on it. That went over and he did the Mission Impossible movie. And he had done, animation his whole life, and he nailed it with with Mission Impossible. And I would have loved to see him do another Mission Impossible movie. Brad Bird, I don't know why his name slipped my mind, but Brad Bird, where his directorial experience was totally animation, and then he went from that and was able to, transition seamlessly. And we've seen other examples of it along the way, through the years, with the Russo brothers coming from doing straight comedy, going into doing the Captain America Winter Soldier and then Civil War, and now they're overseeing the next two Avengers movies. So it can be done. It just gives me pause because, again, I just have a real personal connection to the character in the franchise, and I would love to see it handled properly. I don't want to see them screw this up. And it is not an indictment of Chris McKay at all. It's just right now with Warner Brothers and DC Films, and I'm going to talk about this a little later when I get into the extended universe. Things are a mess right now. If things were more on track and been more cohesive and moving at a more smoother clip, I would be less concerned. I kind of felt like this was a distraction because, just a day or two before this was announced, it was announced that they were in negotiations with for the Batman, the director Gareth. Is it Gareth Evans or Edwards? Whoever the director is. They were in negotiations after Ben dropped out for him to direct. Then they said negotiations broke off, and they might go back to the negotiating table because it got really heated and the cooler heads prevail. We do know since then he has been announced. They did go back to the table, fortunately, and he was announced a few days later that now he's official. He's signed to be the director of the Batman movie. This announcement came right in the middle of that, and I kind of feel like, was this maybe a distraction to keep for the fans and the whole film industry to kind of to distract them from all the negativity that's been going on with the production of not just the Batman but the Flash film as well. But I'm still, again, very optimistic. Now, what I would like to see, if I had my pick for a director, I would either have tapped Gavin O'Connor, because he's worked with Bill Dubuque before. The Accountant, after seeing it, it was one of my favorite action movies of last year. It kind of hit that spot, and I'll equate The Accountant, if you haven't seen it, it really is reminiscent of John Wick. Far as the type or style of movie it is. It's really a throwback to my childhood in the early 90s and late 80s and early mid 90s, where there was a lot of B-flick action movies, just really fun, good movies. That's the vibe that you get from The Accountant and like kind of John Wick. So because they've worked so well together on The Accountant, it would be just a natural fit because he can do that action work with a smaller budget, and he knows how to do good action. Because if you see The Accountant, it's really cool at some action sequences and fight sequences peppered throughout that movie. So I would like to maybe see him do it, or either I just saw John Wick 2 this past weekend. And Chad Stahelski, he co-directed John Wick 1. His partner didn't come back for John Wick 2, and he went solo directing it, and it's phenomenal. As much as I like John Wick 1, I think I like John Wick Chapter 2 slightly a hair better. And he's a stunt guy. He's a stunt coordinator guy that turned director, and he's worked on a ton of movies doing stunts. He even worked with his partner on Captain America Civil War for the big airport fight sequence. He came in, they brought these guys, this is how good they are with action. They were brought in by Marvel and the Russo brothers to help them put that scene together. So he can do action extremely well, and you want the action to be very tight and dynamic in this. So even if Chris McKay is directing, it would be cool if they could maybe, bring Chad Stahelski in to kind of help with the action sequences, or maybe have someone, because Gavin O'Connor has such a good history with Bill Dubuque with the accountant, that maybe he could come in as an executive producer, to just make sure they don't mess this movie up. I don't want them to mess my Nightwing up. I want this to be a phenomenal movie. I don't want any mediocre, DC movies, because I'm a fan of the DC universe and the DC characters. Though right now, personally, I'm behind on reading a ton of their books. I still love the legacy surrounding the characters, and the generational appeal that, it's been multiple Robins. Dick was the first one, and many other people came on, and then he made himself into he evolved into Nightwing. I love that path. His story is just, I don't know. It's just cool. You don't see it as much in Marvel with the legacies of characters and the generational, evolution of a character. They've gone in over the past 10 so years, and they've started adding legacies like what they did with Matt Fraction and Ed Brubaker on Iron Fist. That was the first real comic I really saw that, where they did a generational thing. And then later kind of with Hawkeye, when Hawkeye died, and then we had not Lady Hawkeye, but Hawkeye from Young Avengers take the mantle, and then when he came back, and the stuff they did and the stuff they're doing with her now, because she has her own solo book, where they started adding more of a legacy, generational type to their characters and to the mantles of their characters, which is really cool. But it really originated with DC Comics, and he's the forefront. He was like the first sidekick, and he evolved into a hero in his own right as an adult. He's been fighting crime since he was 9-10 years old, to now being mid-20s. He's very experienced, and he's very respected from everyone in the DC universe. He's probably one of the most important characters, because he's a gateway to both the generation that preceded him with Batman, Superman, and he has ties to all of them, to that second generation with characters like Wally West and Aqualad or Tempest and all that kind of stuff. So, he's a very pivotal character in the DC universe. So I'm glad he is getting a standalone movie based on how important he is. He's a very vital character based on that. Now, when it comes to the casting, these are just some of my thoughts. Just spitballing this over the weekend, because this was announced late last week. For Nightwing, Dick Grayson, some of the names that popped into my head was Zac Efron, because I feel like he just has the physical look of what I would imagine Dick Grayson to be. Now, I'm not sure, because I wasn't a Disney kid, and I didn't watch his whatever show, High School Musical or whatever. I don't know much about him. My wife does. And I was like, I've seen him in a few movies, more so comedies. I was like, I don't know what his acting range is to really be able to pull off Dick Grayson, but I feel like he checks the box as far as the body, the tight body, and the look, that charming look, and he seems like he has that charisma where he can get along with a lot of people. So I feel like he checks those boxes. I just don't know as far as the range in acting, if he could nail the Dick Grayson. Someone else that came to my mind, but I don't think he would be a fit, because I just think he's a little bit too old for what they would need him to be to fit in the DC expanded universe as we have it now. Is Channing Tatum. I think he would be really cool for it. He's also ripped. He used to be a dancer. You got to think about the fact that Dick Grayson he's very athletic. He's very acrobatic. I know Channing Tatum used to be a dancer. He stays in tremendous shape. He could pull off some of those moves in training. So he came to mind. Matt Bomber from White Collar, the TV show White Collar. He was also in Magic Mike 1 and Magic Mike XXL with Channing Tatum. Excuse me. Oops. Don't hit the microphone when you're recording. That's not a good thing. Matt Bomber, he's a little bit too old. But I when I think about the character he played in White Collar, that was super charming, and he can get dark. His face was the first face that kind of popped into my head, but his age is a factor, and he stays in relatively good shape. He's just a little bit too old for the character, but acting-wise, he checks the box at acting-wise for me for the Dick Grayson character, but he wouldn't be someone I would go with. Next, for me, for consideration, is Kellen Lutz. I really liked him in the Twilight movies and the character he portrayed. He has a look. When they were talking about casting a younger Bruce Wayne Batman, his name came up a lot. I saw a couple of headshots, and one I was like, I kind of felt like he could do a younger Bruce Wayne Batman. That never happened. They went with an older Batman, and they went with, Ben, which is totally cool. But I feel like he's built, but he's a little more chunky of a guy, bulkier of a build, muscular build. And I always, from the way Dick is portrayed in the comics, he's more of a lean, really cut type person, not bulky. So that would be my only kind of concern with Kellen Lutz. I don't, again, into acting, I don't know. I think he can be a likable jock type, which kind of Dick is, but it's a little bit more complexity to the Dick Grayson character. I don't necessarily know, but again, he has the checkbox and the look and the body type kind of sort that I would imagine from translating the character from the comic to the movie screen. Now, I also heard of Jared. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Palecki. He's one of the two brothers on Supernatural. I don't watch Supernatural. To me, when I saw him and I looked at his headshots and stuff and watched a few clips online of the show, he doesn't look anything like Dick Grayson to me. I don't get it, but they were like, he came out when this was announced and mentioned he would love to play the character. I don't see it, but I don't make that final decision. I think the two people that are my front runners would be Zac Efron, I think, could really do it, and Kellen Lutz. I think those are the two guys, if I was going to and this was me spitballing off the top of my head, those would be the two guys I could see play that Dick Grayson Nightwing role. Just, body type, acting wise is kind of sketchy. I think Zach is probably would be my number one choice, with Kellen being like, if you couldn't get him, you can get someone a little bit cheaper that could do it. And Zach has a lot going on. He has Baywatch coming out. I don't know, and I try to factor in all the rumors and stuff you're hearing, projects and stuff that people are associated with. I don't know. Kellen had the Hercules movie that didn't do extremely well. You probably could get him on the cheap to do it if you couldn't get someone like Zach that's kind of on the come up right now. He had a few misfires. It looks like Baywatch is going to be a pretty big hit this summer. He has the Neighbors franchise. They did 1 and 2, and I think it was an announcement that a third one is coming, down the road at some point. It would be interesting to see as far as availability if they can make that work. Now, when I thought about source material from all the different things they could pull from Nightwing, I just feel like they could easily adapt Nightwing Volume 1, Bloodhaven, which I reviewed, a few months back last year. I can't remember when it was last year, but I reviewed that. They repackaged that trade, and they put in the first 8 issues of the Nightwing ongoing series in it. And it's kind of like a murder mystery that brings him to Bloodhaven, and then he encounters his Joker, which is Blockbuster. And I thought about this really hard. And one person, Blockbuster is very intimidating in stature. And he's supposed to be like 7 or 8 feet tall or whatever in the comic, or he's just really tall. I don't know if they ever specify it, but he's like about 7 foot tall. I want to say roughly. I only could think about 2 people. I thought about the guy that plays the Mountain on Game of Thrones, but I don't know how good his English is because he really doesn't say much in Game of Thrones. But I was thinking about a big, bulky guy that really looks good in a suit and can talk and is very intellectual. Though he's you think of him more of a brute, which Blockbuster is. He's really a schemer, a master strategist type guy. And the only person I can think that can really play this role is Dave Bautista. One of his heel personas when he was in the WWE was like he was a superstar, and he always came out in the ring with shades and a suit. And I was like, if he can kind of do that, that persona mixed with kind of his character from Spectre, though he didn't say much in that role, but how he portrayed it, like a mixture of his superstar persona in WWE and his character from Spectre. That's Blockbuster. That perfect mix between the two, which I know he can do because I've seen him do it. He would nail it. And if they went with a guy like him, he wouldn't be kind of deformed because he kind of has this, big blockhead. Hence why his name is Blockbuster. But if you're looking to keep the budget kind of trim on this, you wouldn't have to go with special effects with it. And again, you can adjust that accordingly. Where he's not going to be 8 foot tall, but he's still imposing to go up against like a Zac Efron or Kellen Lutz. As far as just he's a massive man and they're cut, but they're it would look good visually. The concept of the opposing nature of him to the smaller, more leaner guy that immediately Nightwing, when face to face with him, seems like the underdog going in. So visually that would work just the same without the extra special effects and whatever you would have to do to kind of make him look just like he was in a comic book. You just adapted accordingly, and I think that would really work, and he could play the role you still convey the essence of what the character of Blockbuster is without the over-exaggerated comic book effect of his appearance, and it could work. Next, another character. If you go from adapting this first 8 issues of the ongoing series, Dudley Soames. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, with these characters, but he's a very pivotal character, supporting character. I don't want to say it without spoiling too much because I don't know. It's talk that they might adapt this. I thought of Aidan Gillian to play the role. Other people that I considered was William Finchner and James Darcy. And what it came down for me, and my ultimate pick is Aidan Gillian, is that Dudley Soames wrapped up is basically, if you watch Game of Thrones and Aidan Gillian plays Littlefinger, he's basically Littlefinger in the modern day sense. So why not get Littlefinger to play Littlefinger? I thought, it'd be cool. William Finchner, he's a great character actor. I think I first remember seeing him in, I want to say Roseanne, maybe the old Roseanne show. And he started doing movies, and he always plays like a henchman, bad, evil kind of guy. He's just a really good character actor. He most notably was in the beginning sequence of The Dark Knight. For Nolan's Dark Knight movie, he was the bank manager. He has that kind of same vibe. James Darcy, I thought, would be a good twist because Dudley Soames appears to be one way in the beginning and then goes dark. I feel like with these first two actors, it's evident because they normally play bad people in stuff, so you would see the curve, but they really embody the character so well. I would have to go with Aidan over the other two, but those are other two options that I feel like could from the works that I've been familiar with of theirs, that they could actually pull it off as well. So you would have some options there, but he would be who I would target first for this role. Bridget Clancy is another character. This one I had a long list of people because she was Dick Grayson's landlord in the apartment building that he stays in when he moves to Bloodhaven, and she's Asian descent with I think she was adopted and she grew up with, or she's mixed heritage with Asian and Irish of all things. So she's Asian appearance with a Irish accent. And I was thinking about different actresses, and I was thinking about Karen Fukuhara, which did Katana in Suicide Squad, which I thought she was really good, but she didn't have much there. I also thought about Ryla Fukamusha, which she was in The Wolverine, and she also was on Arrow. She actually played Katana in Arrow, the television show, though Karen Fukuhara played Katana in the Suicide Squad. But I don't know, they're talking about that's another thing that I'm going to talk about a little later, that it's rumors pushing that they're trying to get Mel Gibson to direct Suicide Squad 2. So I don't know would she even be available, because she might reprise her role as Katana. So then I thought about Ryla. She hasn't been on Arrow this season at all. She can do film. I don't know if she can pull off the Irish accent though, but she has a look, and I always felt like she has a warm, endearing look. So it would fit, and she's an Asian actress. So, I like that diversity of the character. So I really think you really include her, because she's a potential love interest. Also thought about Olivia Munn. Her movie career, for me, I know her from Attack of the Show back on G4 television. She's extremely funny and talented, but she comes off really stiff and wooden in a lot of movies that I see her in. But I know it's there because I've seen it. I used to watch Attack of the Show 5 days a week. Know she's funny as, all get out. But her personality never, and if you see her in interviews, she's great. It just doesn't translate in the movies I've seen her in, especially X-Men Apocalypse. I thought, okay, she could be a cool Psylocke, and then when you saw the final product, it was it was cringeworthy. But I thought about her potentially, and I thought about Katrina Law, which I really love her. She played Nissa, I think it was Nessa Al Ghul on Arrow. She's on training day. She left Arrow because she got a role, a very pivotal role in a Training Day show. And I'm wondering about this because we just heard, this weekend that Bill Paxton just passed, and he was one of the main stars on the show. Were they going to, go with that show past whatever episodes they filmed? She might be available because of that. Hopefully with her, because I really like her as an actress, and she does accents well. I could see her being the Bridget Clancy character. Now, Bridget had a very 90s, short haircut, and Katrina has really kind of long hair. So I feel like acting-wise, she could definitely nail it. She just would have to do something with her hair, I guess, or you could modernize it, because we're not in the 90s anymore. It's 20s, whatever, when this movie would be filmed. So they could modernize that, and she could get away with it. And I think she can do really good with the role. I feel like her and Olivia Munn. Another person I kind of thought of is Sophia Boutella, because I really love her. I loved her in that Star Trek Beyond, and I think she could fit the bill. It's no really action with Bridget Clancy. Doesn't evolve into a crime fighter later, but I just love her, and she has that exotic look that Bridget always had in the comics. So I feel like you could always just stick her in there. But Olivia Munn and Katrina Law, I think if I had my top pick, I would probably pick Katrina Law in that role. But those are just some options and what I was thinking about them. A good side villain to have in the movie is this assassin with these cool hand blades. They're not size. I can't remember what they were called. They had a specific name. And they were like a family heirloom. She was an aristocrat assassin that was on retainer from Blockbuster to do certain work for him. And I thought about who we can get that's British, cool, and can do action well. I thought about the first name that came to my mind was Natalie Dormer. She was on Game of Thrones as Marjorie. She got killed at the end of the last season. Spoiler if you haven't watched it. She's been in Hunger Games. She's been in a lot of different movies over the years. I think she was in Captain America, the first Avenger. She was World War II sequences. I think she was flirting with him in a scene with Steve Rogers. She's been in a lot of different stuff. She can do the accent. She's blonde, so she has the look. I also thought about Emily Van Camp. I really liked her. I like her as Sharon Carter on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that would probably be the only thing that would probably hurt her from being able to do this. But she's again blonde. She can do it. We've seen her do action and fight sequences, so she's already familiar with doing stunt and fight work. But my ultimate choice would be Haley Atwell. They've already killed her character off in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think they canceled Agent Carter, which I'm still upset about to this day. I think her show Conviction, I don't know how that did. I don't know if it's still even out, if it got canceled or if it even appeared yet. I know they did a thing where they showed the pilot for it and it wasn't received super well, so she could be available. This would be a perfect character for her. And I've seen her wear a blonde wig on Agent Carter, and she looks stunning as a blonde, so she could definitely fill that role extremely well, and we know she can do fight scenes. If you've ever watched Agent Carter, the Marvel short they did for Agent Carter that launched the TV show or either season, she can do action and do it well, so she would be good. I would love to see her go against Zack in some fight scenes and just see her be like kick butt as this assassin, but a little darker twinge. I would love it. So that would be my ultimate choice for Lady Vic. Bivens, which is her tower of a manservant that he's relatively quiet. He's her butler, yet he kind of gives off, like he dotes after her, kind of similar to the Enchantress in Scourge the Executioner, kind of how their dynamic always kind of came across in the comics for Marvel. It's kind of equivalent to that. But they're not superhuman beings or gods or whatever. Bivens, this is where I would get the mountain. His name is, I hope I pronounced this without butchering it, Hafthor Julius Bjornsson is the guy that plays the mountain on Game of Thrones, and he's a mountain of a man. And what made me think about him is that you don't know how well his English is. He wouldn't have to speak a lot of it because he spoke very little. So you could direct and write around that to make it work for him if his English is not that good, because he really says much of anything. He's more of a posing physical presence on Game of Thrones. I thought about the dynamic in this panel when you're first kind of introduced to Bivens is a scene where Lady Vic is coming out of the bathroom and she's like in a robe and he's handing her like her clothes on a hanger, and you see how tall he is, and the mountain is a mountain of a dude. So if you had like Haley Atwell with this huge dude, that just the scale dynamic of scale in the panel, to put that on film, I think it would be a perfect role for him, because he's just so physically imposing, and he looks like at a drop of a dime, if she was ever in distress, he would come to her aid, though she's more than capable. That's where I feel like it would be that underlying tension of the that he has more feelings for her besides being just the manservant. So I just think he would be. You couldn't get anybody else visually that could do that, but him. Let's see some of the other roles. I'm just going to roll through these a little quick. Chief Redhorn, which is the police chief in the corrupted Bloodhaven. I thought about a few people. I thought about Rob Riggle. Donnell Laug. He plays on Gotham. He plays is it Harvey Bullock that he plays? I think he plays Harvey Bullock on Gotham. He's a really good character actor. He's been around for if I can talk, a while. I thought about Michael Cudlitz from The Walking Dead. He was Abraham. And I thought about Vincent D'Onofrio. Probably he's a no-go because he's Kingpin over on Daredevil. And from the physical appearance, Chief Redhorn, I thought about Riggle and Donnell Logue at first because they could play the role. Because Redhorn he looks nice in appearance, but he can snap on a drop of a dime. But he's a little bit more ripped and kind of cut, and he's a redhead with a buzz cut. Abraham was a redhead with a buzz cut. He's kind of ripped, and he could be a hothead and flip any second. So he checks all the boxes. He can act it. He can. He has the physical appearance of kind of how he appears. He's kind of a bulkier guy, kind of chubby guy, but built. So got the guns and everything like that. Michael Cutlass is a little bit more fit than what Chief Redhorn, because Redhorn looks like he could blow a gasket and have a heart attack at any second a little bit, but he's still kind of ripped, so he can do damage when he snaps if he gets violent. But I think he would be the perfect person to get to play Chief Redhorn. Of course, you would have to have some ties to. You necessarily wouldn't have to have Oracle in the movie, but in the comic series, Oracle did enter into the comics, not so much in the first arc, but she was around, and I kind of feel like it might be a good, thing to plant, to have her have a very small presence in the film. And first thing I wrote down was Jennifer Lawrence, and if no other reason as a placeholder, because I loved Barbara Gordon's character so much, and I loved her as Oracle. And I think one of the biggest mistakes they made in the comic book was having her be healed from being in the wheelchair and putting her back as Batgirl, because she was so much more of an important character in the DC universe as Oracle than she is as Batgirl. She's kind of like, she's not in the forefront like she was. She was involved in all the major things because she was the information hub and center of the whole DC universe. So she kind of lost her importance in the DC universe as a whole by healing her. So I would, if they did Barbara Gordon, I would, in the the DC extended universe, I would like to see her more as Oracle than Barbara Gordon Batgirl. You could allude to the Killing Joke happening and her being paralyzed, but you wouldn't have to show all that. You would just pick up as her being Oracle, but you would tease her in this movie, say if they would do a trilogy, and she would be more prominent in the following movies, and you could know that they have a history and they have a romantic history as well. Jennifer Lawrence was like a placeholder. Then I came back with Haley Bennett. She was in The Magnificent Seven as the wife that hired Denzel. Their husband was which was Matt Bomer, of all people, that was killed at the beginning of the movie, that set her on this, path to hire Denzel for the revenge. She really works. I don't think she's a natural redhead, but she wore like a red, dirty, blonde, red kind of wig in that movie, and it worked for her. I also thought about Alexandria Daddario. She was in San Andreas. She was in the two movies. I forget them every time. They were the young adult movies. The Lightning Thief and that movie. And then she's in Baywatch with The Rock. She played The Rock's daughter in San Andreas, and then she's going to be in Baywatch with him as well. She's a redhead. I like her acting ability. And I think she really can really portray what Barbara Gordon is. Her and Haley Bennett both. You can go with either one of them. Another person I thought about as well that might be slightly, if you're trying to match up age ranges with Zac Efron, Adrienne Palicki. She was on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. She was Mockingbird. She was Bobby Morris. She did a great job with that. She might be a little older, but I think she could do it as well. But my first picks would be, it's a tie between Haley Bennett and Alexandria Daddario. I think either one of them would fit that role of Oracle, Barbara Gordon, perfectly. You got some other roles here. Hank Hogan. He's a bar owner that hires Dick for his first job in Bloodhaven. His cover job. I thought about for Hank Hogan, or Happy Hogan is no, not Happy Hogan, but Hank Hogan. He owns Hogan's Alley bar. I thought about John Goodman I thought about Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones. And I thought about Robert Foster, and Robert Foster would be my pick to play Hank. You just have to read the series to kind of get a feel for the character. I think about Robert Foster in a lot of roles. Mainly, I think about his role in Jackie Brown as that experienced ex-cop detective guy that would help you out of a jam. That's very much kind of the Hank persona. So I think he would be perfect for it. Tad Ryerstad, he wouldn't have a huge role in his first movie, but it would be setting the seeds for something greater later. And the person I thought would be perfect for it is Stephen Amell. I want to see him succeed in movies. I think he was just miscast, and the role was just poorly written for him as Casey Jones in that last Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie. And since they're not going to let him be Oliver Queen in the DC expanded universe, give him this role. I think he can knock it out of the park. We know he can do the action, and I think he has the acting chops as well. And of course, I feel like you might want to see Deathstroke kind of pop up, maybe not for this movie, but definitely in a sequel, because Dick Grayson and Deathstroke have a very serious history. Judas contract anyone from the New Teen Titans. You can set that up for down the road. You definitely would have at least a cameo by Ben Affleck, just tying him to the greater, DC expanded universe, to have Ben show up there and just a brief cameo. But I feel like a big supporting character on the good side would be, you would have to have Jeremy Irons, maybe a little bit bigger role than just a cameo in the movie, because he has a very close relationship with Alfred in the comics, especially in this original ongoing series. So you couldn't have a Nightwing movie without having, maybe where it was some phone conversations or conferencing calls between him and Alfred in the movie. So I would say he might need to be like maybe in 2 or 3 of them throughout. So it would be more like a glorified cameo than a full-on role in the movie. But I think you can't have this movie work if you don't display that part of Dick's life, and how Alfred is really more so like a father figure to him, and they have a very, very close relationship. And Alfred is very much a support system, I think even more so in a lot of ways to Dick than more so than he is to even Bruce in a lot of ways. So you would have to have him in there, peppered in there somehow to portray that closeness that he has with him. So those are just kind of some of the picks that I have. The spitballing, I don't know if any of this will ever come to fruition. I did a lot of, I really sat and thought about it, and I hadn't done any fantasy casting like this in years. So it was fun having something where I know a lot of the source material and kind of play around with it for you guys, and maybe give you some thoughts to think about. If you're familiar with the material, and maybe this might spark you to want to look up the material. I was thinking about budgets. I was like, if I'm going to spitball this, to make this as successful as possible. Now, I looked at some of the movies I spoke about earlier, like John Wick 2, The Accountant, things like that. And their budgets were rather small. The first John Wick movie only had a budget of $20 million. The Accountant had a budget of like $44 million. John Wick 2 Chapter 2 had a budget of $40 million. And those were, John Wick 2 is still in the theaters, and it has a very, it's made its budget way over. Nightwing's a lesser known character because they haven't introduced him to the masses. So for general public, this might be a risky movie for Warner Brothers and DC to kind of do. So I would probably, from researching those and all the bigger movies like Wonder Woman, I made comparables to like Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, things like that. They're going to be more special effects heavy. This is can all be done practically, especially with the adjustments I was speaking about making with the blockbuster character with Dave Bautista. They really can pull this off with a minimal budget, where the risk of it tanking would be less. I was spitballing or just estimating if it had a budget anywhere between 50 to 75 million, because I think if you give them any more money, you have a potential to ruin the movie. because sometimes if you have too much money, you start doing too much crazy stuff. And I looked at the action sequences and the set locations and all that kind of stuff. That's more than an ample enough budget for them to have and really make it work. You can shoot a lot of this on location. You can shoot a lot on, sound stages, but for like exterior shots, Bloodhaven is like kind of, it's hard geographically. It's like down the river. So it's kind of like from New York down to New Jersey kind of. But I think about when you look at the visuals, and you would have to read that trade to kind of see, Scott McDaniels and Chuck Dixon did a wonderful job between writer and artist, really giving Bloodhaven its own character. So I think some of the locations you would have to fill in. They have a huge Bay Area, so I would think you could use location shots for like Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I was thinking about the docks and things like that because they have a dock area. New York and New Jersey. Those are some of the places you can get exterior shots and do on location shots from that would help. Those are the cities that popped in my mind that encompasses what Bloodhaven kind of is. It's a dock city, but then it's an industrial kind of smokestacky, how it was portrayed, the personality of it, which all puts Pittsburgh in the mind. I've been to Pittsburgh. It's, so it embodies it pretty well, but it's kind of like it's a Jersey kind of in location. So you could do shots there, and to get more dynamic bay shots, you could do, Baltimore for that with Pittsburgh, because they have a kind of bay. It's on the waterfront and bridges and so forth. So you can do a mix of those locations to really nail the character of Bloodhaven and distinguish it separate from the different locations that I know they've used Chicago a lot for Gotham over the years. So this would be something different visually that they could do. With the extended universe, they've so we're going to go on to this next topic with the extended universe and where this all would fit in. If we're going with, because there's still rumors flying around that Ben might drop out of the Batman movie at some point. I hope not, and I hope he would continue on, because I think he might be our best Batman to date on that we've had on film, and I would like to see him stick around and see it through, but like back away like he did with the Batman so far, and not direct, not write, produce, and do everything. Just focus on his performance. So if you keep it tied into that, you can tie it in from, if we assume, and it was put out at some point, I think on a tour. They took the video down though, where someone was on tour at the Warner Brothers lot, and they had the Robin spray painted thing from Batman v Superman, where they said pretty much that it was Jason Todd. So we do know it would be a Dick Grayson, that if you had someone around Zac Efron's or Kellen Lutz's age, it would fit far as age range. From if you have an older Batman with Ben, it plays well. You would need someone in their kind of age range to fill it in. This talk of Gotham. Okay, DC has out there Gotham City Sirens has been thrown out there about a movie that's going to be in production. We got Aquaman that's starting filming soon. They're talking about Suicide Squad 2 now. They were in negotiations with a director for Shazam, or I think he signed on. Then it's talk about they're going to split Shazam and Black Adam into two separate movies. Then we got, the Batman out there that's supposed to come out. That's, we got the director nailed down now, but we don't know when this movie is going to be filmed or going to be released at this point, because they've had so many delays. And they talked about a total script rewrite again. Then we got The Flash, where they're now saying that they're going to do a total script rewrite on that. And they've had, 3 or 4 different directors sign on and then leave the project. And then it's Cyborg that's still kind of floating out there. All these movies were supposed to come out, or at least with Aquaman. Well, we know Aquaman is actually on course to hit its release date. But kind of after that, everything else is a toss-up. After the end of the year with Justice League, we know the only other movie that we know that's on track that's set to come out in 2018 is Aquaman. We don't know about what's going on with The Flash because that was supposed to be the other movie for 2018. We don't know. They were going to film Justice League 1 and 2 back to back. They pulled off on that, so we don't know when that's coming out. And all the initial slate they had set up, all these movies were supposed to hit before 2020. We're at 2017 right now, and it's a jumbled mess after Aquaman at this point. So they really gonna have to get some things. And now we got this announcement of Nightwing, so we have yet another movie on there. And we're not talking about in 2020. We're still supposed to have Green Lantern Corps, which is still another movie that's out there. So it's still a lot. It's a real mess right now on where this stuff is going to go, where you're going to fit it in, who's still going to be involved in the movie, at that point in time. Where would they find time to slot this movie in? How will this movie be affected if Ben Affleck drops out and he's not in the Batman? Like, how all this meshed together is going to be interesting to see. These are just some of my hopes for the Nightwing movie because, like I said, I'm a huge fan. It's all relative and it remains to be seen. Only time is going to tell how it's all going to pan out. I want to give credit to one of the people that first broke the news that I saw on YouTube. Is a YouTube channel that I follow that's called Beyond the Trailer. I like to give credit if I do get an idea for to do an episode from something, to give credit where credit's due. It's a really cool YouTube channel. Check it out. It's called Beyond the Trailer. She does a wonderful job breaking down. I think her name is Grace. She does a really good job breaking down trailers and things like that. She broke down some ideas and threw some things out there. Didn't seem like she had a super knowledge of the Nightwing character in the comics, so I wanted to do my own spin and enter my own thoughts, and I went a little bit deeper than what she did, but it kind of triggered me to be like, I knew I wanted to do it as soon as I heard the news, but kind of how she laid it out gave me some kind of inspiration and gave me some ideas. So again, I always like to source where I get inspiration from, so definitely check her out if you have a chance on YouTube. As always, you can follow me at comicbooksavant.com, on Twitter at comicbooksavant. The YouTube channel, you can find the YouTube channel. I do have a custom URL up for it now. So just YouTube, Comic Book Savant, that's there as well. Again, Instagram at Comic Book Savant, and the Facebook page. All the links are on the website. So if you ever can't remember any of them, just go to the website and you can easily find the social media links to all the pages. That's all I have for you guys this week, and that's all from the Comic Book Savant. I will see you guys again next week for another episode. You guys take care.
And into lyrical wholeness, and I know this, and I know this. This I know, this I know.